Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron, and I am back for you with another awesome Battlytics analysis here. This one requested by our patrons. It's the Highlander IIC. I made the joke before. Some people still call it an IIC mech, but it is in fact 2C. The C stands for clan. This is a clan second line mech. And if I have to say anything about second line clan mechs, is that they're all amazing because they don't have XL engines. So let's talk a little bit about this Highlander. I'm very excited to do this. 90 tons, just like the regular Highlander. It's a 353, just like the regular Highlander, and it was built a really long time ago, as far as BattleTech lore is concerned, just like the other Highlanders. This is a 2858 design, and it has a battle value almost equivalent to its year of production, 2979. That's an insanely high battle value. Will it be worth it? I don't know. We'll find out. But this thing does have 12 double heat sinks. That's a standard fusion engine. Hallelujah. And it doesn't really have anything fancy except for 14.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor, equating to 278 pips. That's like, Atlas King Crab territory armor. This thing has pips for days. Absolutely amazing. 99.6% total coverage on this design. It does have a hand actuator on the left side. It has just the lower on the right side. The right arm housing that mighty Gauss rifle. The left arm packing a pair of Streak SRM6s. The left torso with a trio of Clan medium pulse lasers. You all know how I feel about Clan medium pulse and large pulse. They're phenomenal weapons. And then it has an Artemis-guided LRM-20 in the right torso as well. So this thing thematically looks and feels just like a Highlander, but just way better. But will it stand up to the test for that juicy Stone Rhino level price tag? We'll see. Guys, stick around. Battlytics is coming right up. And we're back with the offensive benchmarks. Look at that. So I always enjoy offensive benchmarks when I need to like rescale the x-axis because it's just so big. Actually, that's the y-axis. I'm an idiot. That's fine though. You know what I mean. But the point of this is the damage is so big. It's so big. It's so tall. Some would say huge damage. This thing does 414.6 points of damage over 12 turns if I keep the heat conservatively under 4 points. Like, think about that. Let that marinate. If I dial up the heat and don't exceed 7 points until the very, very end, where I can just like alpha strike and go bananas, I only build up 400. I'm sorry. I only build up, I think at the end, 6 points of heat, and I deal 424.6 points of damage. So at the end of the day, you're only squeezing out another 10 points of damage, which doesn't sound like a lot in the context of 400 points, but it's pretty amazing. And if you're like a total noob and you just hold the trigger down and press all the buttons on the dashboard, you will overheat fairly quickly, but you will still deal 303.8 points of damage. It's almost like 2 Atlases, I think, the old school ones at least. It's just insane amounts of firepower. And we'll talk about why when we dig into the offensive, the threat analysis, and we can see where that damage is coming on. But in terms of the lethality index here, damage per hit is 6.5. So what's bringing that down? Well, the medium pulse lasers, right? The SRMs, every individual missile, the LRM clusters, right? All of these things kind of bring that average down, but it's still doing 6.5 damage per hit. It's generating 3.35 critical hits. I will admit, with twin Streak SRM6s, I was expecting that number to be a lot higher, but I think that's potentially because it's just obliterating the target dummy before it even gets opportunities for criticals. The time to kill on this thing is a blistering it's a blistering 6.24 turns. Like that's really good. I'd have to go to the database to see what the actual lowest and like the best record is, but that is definitely in the running there. And most of the kills you can see here are just core outs, just blowing the thing to pieces. About 11.5% of the time you see a head kill, probably from a slug from that Gauss rifle, or maybe just taking enough flak from all the other guns that it finally knocks it off. But this thing is absolutely a damage dealing machine. It may be one of the highest ones that we've seen. I believe one of the Direwolf A was the highest. I'd have to go to Battlytics.com and see where that is at. But this thing is a beast. So let's take a look at the defense. Again, it's almost 100% armor coverage, but it does have some onboard ammo. It is a clan mech. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So here we are. Defensive benchmarks. I was just looking up the Direwolf. It's 489 points of damage on the offensive benchmark, and this is like 414. So it's significant. It's a lot of damage. It's up there with some of the best. So speaking of best, this thing survives 93.9% of the time in our defensive benchmark. As you can see, armor coverage is absolutely superb. I see a little bit of under spec on the center torso there. You could probably, if you really wanted to like optimize, peel a couple pips off the rear, put it on the front, but like I don't think that's changing these numbers very much at all. Nothing significant at least. So mobility analysis also looking very good. This thing actually loses, less, less of a target. It's actually faster at the end of the battle than the Caesar was. We looked at the Caesar, right, and I think the target mod on that dropped down to a 1 on the 12th turn, and average was like 1.78. This is average of 1.99, so it's almost retaining the full mobility 100% of the time. And I would bet that those outliers are not, I destroyed your leg, but instead, like, I got a through armor critical and hit your foot actuator in the 10,000 simulations. That is bound to happen. But largely, this thing is extremely reliable in terms of its mobility and its performance in that regard. Now, to break down the survivability a little bit more, the majority of the kills, this is what you want to see, the majority of the kills are CT or head kills. And it's only 4.7% of the time. So you're chewing through tons and tons of pips. Let me bring up the actual numbers here. Just 40 pips of armor in the CT, 29 internal structure. So that's, what is that, 69 pips in total that you have to get through just in the CT, not even counting the side torsos, which are 28 external, 19 internal. That's meaty, to say the least. So this thing, you put this on the table, it costs you 3,000 points. It is unlikely to go anywhere unless you're playing massive, like 2 stars aside, and somebody focus fires this thing down. But even then, it is going to soak up a ton of firepower before it is actually brought down to its knees. So very, very impressive on the defensive side. Very, very impressive on the offensive side. The only thing here is that giant battle value. So we're going to dive into efficiency next and see if the survivability and the damage are going to outweigh that massive price tag. All right, so here it is. Survey says definitely buy it. It is a 9.93. Holy smokes. Just think about that. Even with a 3,000, almost 3,000 battle value price tag. And remember, these simulations are done at Gunnery 2, which means it's actually 4171 battle value, assuming that it's like a 2.5, right? It's still a 9.93 for efficiency. That's tremendous. You can see the damage loss is only 2.5%. That's well below the average that we see. We already talked ad nauseum about the survival rate, so I'm absolutely gushing about this mech. And while the gunnery sensitivity is fairly flat, I mean, you can see it climbing pretty juicy there from mid-8s all the way up to almost 10 between Gunnery 4 and Gunnery 2. I think the pulse lasers, the trio of medium pulse, generally keep the gunnery sensitivity down, but you are going to get return on investment with a better gunner. I don't think I would go any higher than 2 on this particular design. Again, 414 points of damage is significant. And it's like almost 600 battle value to get to the next, get from Gunnery 2 to Gunnery 1. That's a lot. You could put that into, pulling another supporting mech up another level of gunnery, or even just investing in an entirely new mech or vehicle or elementals or whatever it might be to support this thing. So moral of the story is Gunnery 2 is phenomenal. The Mech is phenomenal. It's absolutely, it's a top performer. It's up there with like the Kingfisher, the Direwolf A, and some of these other designs. That what was it? I believe the Devastator was also extremely high. So very, very good stuff here. And it's only got one Gauss rifle, right? That's a big deal. This thing isn't packing twin Gauss, but it has the the fortitude to get in, to bring those medium pulse lasers into play, to bring those streaks into play. And we'll talk about that. But clan streaks, clan pulse, just superior stuff across the board. So why don't we talk about that? Why don't we get into the threat, and we'll go from there. Here it is. Look at all this damage. So the one thing I'll start with is, basically where we left off, right? SRMs, streak SRMs specifically, clan medium pulse. The inner sphere varieties are short range 3, medium 6, long 9, clan or 4, 8, 12. That's like significant. At short range, maybe it's not a big difference, but at long range, you're talking 3 additional inches or hexes of range that you can start delivering damage. Not to mention all the other benefits of of the weaponry as well. Like for example, on the medium pulse side, I mean, damage wise, the SRMs are the same. I believe clan medium pulse. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking it up now. So what do these things do for damage? They do 7. So they do an extra point of damage as well. And I believe they build up. Yeah, they build up significantly less heat. Only 2 points of heat. It's crazy. Clan medium pulse, clan large pulse. Like somebody needs to like go back and nerf bat those weapons, or buff the inner sphere ones, because the inner sphere ones suck. That's a digression. I digress, as I've been known to say. So back to the Highlander here. This is another one where I had to scale that y-axis on the threat assessment just to fit the massive alpha strike, the peak alpha strike at 12 inches, assuming everything hits, every missile lands. It's 80 points of damage. That's crazy. That's like bananas. And what you see in the white and the lighter red is basically your 0 heat ACD, right? And then your peak ACD. ACD stands for average calculated damage. So this factors in, okay, I'm at 18 inches. These are the weapons that are in range. This is the modifier. It assumes your gunnery too. It assumes your target has a specific target mod, right? It does the math. And basically it assumes like, hey, this is how much damage I can do based on the 2d6 curve. So what you can see is the closer you get, obviously, those white and light red bars, they're stacked bars, right? They get closer and closer to the max. So the optimal range for this thing, 4 inches, that's where your peak ACD is 65.7. That's what you're going to do on average if you were at 4 inches and 3 inches as well, and able to deliver some damage. Now, once you get a little bit closer, obviously that drops off a little bit, due to minimum range and things like that. So the ACD cap, meaning the difference between your peak ACD and the alpha strike, which is assuming everything hits, is 82.1%, right? So you're basically doing 82.1% of your maximum at that 4-inch range. So that's pretty darn good. So overall, this thing is an absolute monster. And if the threat assessment, that giant shelf, doesn't tell you anything, I will let you know what it means. It means you really want to get into 12 inches, which sucks because it's a slow mech, a 353. But get it in. It just implacably advance across the battlefield to get this thing in range as quickly as possible. And if you see it coming from the other side of the table, I don't know what to tell you. Run. No, I mean, I would focus fire it, or try to kite it, and pick off maybe easier targets as well. If you can even kite, sometimes the scenario needs you to be on a specific objective. And so that you'd have a little bit of a problem there, and you do need to invest in bringing this thing down. So from a role perspective, I'm kind of going backwards here to the top left of the screen. There are 3 roles that I think this thing would be absolutely phenomenal in. The first and second are Brawler and Vanguard, and that's sort of what I just described, right? Vanguard, if you can, right, just run it up the gut. Let things shoot it. If your opponent's not smart and they start shooting it, you can cackle like Nikolai Malthus at them, and all will be well in the world. It'll likely survive. A Brawler, because again, get it in 12 inches. The last role I picked was Defender. Now, this may be counterintuitive because I did tell you, get it within 12 inches. But it is slow as turds, even if it has jump jets. So maybe sometimes if you can't get within 12 inches, just wait for them to come within 12 inches. right? You still have the Gauss rifle and the LRM-20, which are not a joke. I mean, they can do a lot of damage, especially Artemis-guided clan missiles, right? And the clan Gauss. I mean, that's significant damage coming out of this thing. And if they have to get to the objective as part of a scenario, you're holding a mountain pass, or you're defending a mobile HQ in a city, whatever it might be, dropping this thing next to that objective is very daunting for the opponent, because once they have to get within that 12-inch threshold, they're going to be eating potentially up to 80 points of damage, which is disgusting. And by the way, if you do Alpha Strike with this mech, you press all the buttons, as I like to say, you're building up 4 points of heat per trigger pull. It's easy to manage, and you can lay off one weapon the next turn, and you'll just earn that right back. And it doesn't even have to be your biggest one, because again, the Gauss rifle builds up 1 point, which is phenomenal. So that said, I am a Highlander 2C fanboy. Love the Highlander 2C. Cannot wait to get it in the Kickstarter. I did see the model when I was out at Adepticon. Anthony Scroggins had one painted up, and it was phenomenal. And by the way, if you don't know this, on Patreon, Anthony Scroggins releases artwork and renders and things that have not gotten out in the wild yet. So you get a little sneak peek. If you're interested, definitely check out him. I believe it's Shimmering Sword, or you can just check Anthony Scroggins on Patreon. Either way, I believe it comes up. So that's some really cool stuff. But having seen it in person and with his paint skills and stuff, it looked really, really good. Significantly better, in my opinion, than the Inner Sphere Highlander, which I didn't really love the design, if I'm being honest, the redesign of it. But this 2C one is sick. So can't wait to get that on the table. Tell me what clan I should paint it up as. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it in wolf colors. We'll have to see. But that said, guys, I'm all wrapped up with this. Couple of things. Number one, please subscribe. We're almost at 11,000 subscribers. By the time this video comes out, we will probably be over 11,000. So help us get to 12,000. That would be awesome. Leave us a like, leave us a comment. All of those things really helps drive the channel forward. And if you really want to help out, you can come on over to Patreon. That is how we keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. So again, thank you to all of our patrons out there that throw us a couple bucks here and there. We really, really do appreciate it, because without you, there wouldn't be a channel. Also, why don't you support some of our friends? We all know you want to buy stuff. So if you're going to buy BattleTech stuff, head on over to Aries Games and Minis. That is your one-stop shop for all the good stuff. The mechs, the dice, the books, all the things from Catalyst. They also have some other vendors like Hardware Studios on there, Sage Print Labs, so you can get some really great stuff over at Aries Games and Minis. And also check out our friends at Terrainify. It's just next level terrain. It is absolutely gorgeous. You've seen it on our tabletops. You've commented on it. They have an absolute plethora of things, and you will be blown away if you want to pay to have them assemble and finish the models for you, flock them, paint them. It's unbelievable. But if you want to do it yourself, you can either get their STLs and print them and get them all together on your own, or you can just order unpainted but printed models that they can send as well. So very cool stuff over there. Anyway, that's all my favorite BattleTech stuff. Much like the Highlander 2C, absolutely phenomenal. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming.